To the Make Sense with Your Money radio show. My name is Cynthia Hurley, and I am your host. Tonight kicks off our fourth quarter series where I am going to be talking about all of the things that take place in the fourth quarter. You know, there's only 3 more months left before the end of the year. So now companies are looking at their books. They're looking at what happened from January, basically up until now, um, and they're actually analyzing. Okay, what did we not do right? What can we do better now that we're in the fourth quarter? Do we need to make some changes? Many of you should be doing the same thing because you are a business, whether you recognize it or not. So I want to talk about what takes place in the fourth quarter. And tonight we're going to start off by talking with judgments. So grab a paper, grab a pen, call a friend, tell them to tune in to the Make Sense with Your Money show. So I want to start off by talking about judgments. This is the credit series. There's a lot of things that happen in the fourth quarter, but I'm starting off. I want to talk about judgments because that's a topic that people feel that there's no hope when there's a judgment taken out against you. But I'm going to challenge that. And how I'm going to challenge that. Well, first of all, let's just talk about exactly what is a judgment and how can you get out of paying a judgment? Well, first of all, a judgment is what happens when you fail to pay a debt. You fail to pay a debt after a certain amount of time. That debt goes into collections. Okay. And when it goes into collections but first of all, after 90 days, the debt actually gets charged off. Charged off means that after 120 days, excuse me, not 90 days, after 120 days, after no payment activity, the creditor, okay, which let's use Macy's for an example, it charges off the debt. Not only does it charges it off, but it then sells it to a collection agency. Sometimes it may keep it in-house for maybe a couple of months past 120 days, but normally they switch it to a collection agency or an attorney. That all depends on the amount, the size of the debt. Well, what do you mean, Cynthia? Well, a debt for $1,000, normally they don't take you to court for that. Now, when you start talking about $5,000, $3,000, debts of that amount and size, then that's when you have to be concerned about whether this debt is going to end up in an attorney's office. And they may try to collect from you, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. It all depends on who the creditor is before they obtain a judgment, which means that they now take this debt to the courthouse. They write out some paperwork and say, you know what, Judge, we've been trying to get this attorney from Jane Doe, and Jane Doe has not responded. So we want to obtain a judgment. Now, at that point, they do that if you don't answer. If you don't, because they're going to reach out to you. If you don't answer, you give them permission to get the judgment. Now, at this point, now all negotiation tactics is off the table because now they have permission to collect the full $5,000. I'm using that as an example. They have permission to collect the full $5,000 from you instead of negotiating it, which is the opportunity that you had before it went to a judgment status. Now, the reason why I'm starting off with judgments is because, I in working in this field for the many years that I have, I noticed that a lot of people, when it comes to debt and dealing with creditors, there's a fear attached to it. And people tend to not want to confront things all their bills, their issues. And because they don't want to do that, they just sit. And when they sit, they don't get better. They don't go away. They remain until you deal with them. And so this is what happens. This is the reason why I'm starting off with judgments, because at the end of in the fourth quarter, right? This is when you deal with things that are just left haggling, things that are, situations, because you're going into new year, new things, new status, new behavior, new patterns. It shouldn't happen at the end of in going into the end of the year, you make precedents for the beginning of the new year. So this is when people tend to start to look at things. They want to start all over and all of that kind of stuff. So I said, let me start with this, because your finances, your financial portfolio is very, 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 very important. Period. So I'm starting here. And plus, this is my lane. I'm a financial professional. This is my lane. So anyway, so judgment. So I explained what judgments are, right? Now, when a judgment has been initiated, now you're talking about wage garnishment. They begin to search for you because they want to find out if you're working. They want to know, okay, how much money you're making, because now, they can find out all of this stuff because, yeah, it's a judgment how they can do that. So what are your options at this point? Do you even have any options? All right, well, let's just talk about it. I'm going to give you some of the tips. I'm not going to give you all of the tips, but let's see what your options are. First of all, if you do have a judgment against you, the first thing that you want to do is challenge it. No, Cynthia, I don't want to challenge the judgment because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about that. Well, I'll show you how, and I'll get into that later. It's very simple, very simple. But you challenge the judgment because, watch this, normally in a judgment, in the process, is where all of the errors are found. I'm just saying. That's where all the errors are found. And when there is an error, listen, I'm gonna do what Johnny Cochran said. If it don't fit, you must acquit. Johnny Cochran said. So if it don't fit, there's a process and a protocol that the attorney has to follow in order to get that judgment. And if they don't do it right, then guess what? It must be acquitted, period. So now you think that is your only option. So they're going to look at your job. They're going to come for you after your job and find out all that kind of stuff. And then they're going to start the wage garnishment. I mean, I would not just let it rest like that. How can you get out of a judgment? Well, I told you negotiation is normally off the table because they can collect the full amount with a judgment. They don't have to negotiate anything. So I'm not even going to talk about negotiation at this point. Even though recently I was able to encourage someone to negotiate with them because they had been trying to collect from this young man for, I want to say, like 10 years. He was able to dodge them for 10 years. I think they did catch him at one point because he hopped around. He wasn't working. Then we did work him. They found him. They garnished his money for a little while until he stopped working. And then he went to another job and they was trying to get him on that job, but the employer was holding them back. Because watch this, the employer did not let the collection agency, the attorney collection agency, know that person was working for them. So because of that, how are they going to garnish you anything if the employer is covering you? But anyway, he managed to escape. And then he just called me up recently and said, you know what, Cynthia, I can't do this no more. I just want to just get rid of these people and get them off my back because I'm tired of running. And I think the debt was about $3,000, $3,500, something to that magnitude, right? And he said, I'm going to call and I'm going to see if I can negotiate. And I said, well, you can try, but normally they don't negotiate when you have a judgment. But I guess they were so tired of chasing him that they gave him a settlement. So that can happen. You can never say never. They gave him a settlement and he was able to get, I believe, like about $1,100 knocked off of that. Probably about $1,100, $1,200 off of the judgment. So you never know. It all depends on the circumstances. But if it's new, I don't know. But I will tell you, though, that it's a certain way that you have to do that, because I've seen so many people kick themselves. I mean, really kick themselves, thinking that they can negotiate and they just completely made a mess. I've seen people who negotiated, watch this, and they negotiated without any proof. And because they didn't have any proof, the collection agency said, we never gave him a judgment. I mean, we never gave him a settlement. So because you don't have no proof, they can deny that conversation ever took place, and you can end up still paying the entire amount of the bill. I've seen this happen. These they're like predators. They're, and not all of them, but most of them. And they can't be trusted. They can't be trusted. So you really have to know what you're doing when you step into this arena. You have to know what you're doing when you step into this arena. Okay. So we talked about negotiation. Let's talk about filing a claim of exemption. Well, what does that mean, a claim of exemption? Well, a claim of exemption basically means that you're going to put it like this. A lot of states, they will allow you as a debtor to file what's called a claim of exemption. And basically it is basically saying that the garnishment is causing hardship, or you really can't afford this garnishment because you can't live, and you're not making enough money to support your basic monthly living expenses. But you have to do that, go to the court and do that. But you can do that though. Okay. Just letting you know what your options are. You can actually challenge it, the garnishment. Of course, you have to go to court for that. But all these things are available to you. They're all available to you. And I'll get into more detail about that at the end of the show. But you never should just settle. You should never just settle, because everybody makes mistakes. All right. Let's just say that, okay, well, you know what, Cynthia, everything is right. I got this garnishment. What do I do? Well, there's no other thing to do but pay it. Pay it. Unless you file for bankruptcy. And you probably don't want to do that. Okay. So, so you do have options, credit counseling. I mean, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. That's not for me to entertain right now, because I think people who file credit counseling, you have to know what your situation is before I say yes, no, maybe so. You understand? So let me move on into my next topic, which ties into the judgments, because now statute of limitations, let's just talk about the statute of limitations on a judgment, because the guy that I was speaking with, we had this conversation. He was like, well, don't this thing expire? I can just wait till it expire and I don't have to pay. Well, let me tell you something. A judgment, first of all, if the creditor or the attorney, the collection agency or the attorney or whoever it is that took out this judgment against you, if they don't slip up, right? what happens is that they have to renew it every 10 years in order for it to remain collectible. If they don't renew it every 10 years, then it gets canceled and you no longer have a judgment. Okay? Number one. Number two is because it never expires. I mean, well, I'm not gonna say it never expires. Once it's collectible like that, that means that it just continues and it continues. There is no statute of limitations on a judgment, is what I'm trying to say. Unless they forget to renew it, there's no statute. There's no statute. Now, debt, on the other hand, there is a statute. We all know that. But guess what, y'all? I don't know if you know this, but the statute of limitations on debt used to be 6 years. But Governor Hochul, she changed it. Go ahead, Governor Hochul. She changed it and she decreased it from 6 years to 3 years. That's significant, y'all. It's bad enough. 6 years is a long time, but now it's down to 3 years now. What kind of debts are they talking about? They're talking about medical debt, loans, debt, medical debt, credit card debt, oral contracts, all of that stuff. Now, but here is the tricker. And y'all got to listen to me on this one. The statute of limitations was brought down from 6 to 3 years. But I want you to note that the change applies to consumer debts incurred after the law was passed. Bummer. After the law was passed. So that means that if you incurred your debt after 2021 or 2021, right when she made that change, all the debts moving forward is 3 years, not the ones prior. But that's still good to know. You need to know that because it really helps you, in handling your financial affairs when it comes to debt. Now, when a debt expires, so let's just break that whole thing down, statute of limitations. What does that mean? Because, people say, oh, statute of limitations expired, I don't have to pay the debt, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's true. That's true. But it all depends, though. It all depends because after 6 years, if you haven't paid the debt, it don't even make no sense to pay it anyway, because when you get close to the 6-year mark, that debt has been in collections all that time. Don't even make sense to pay it. But I will say this. The company or whoever's coming after you, they can still try to collect, but you don't have to pay. And I'm telling you, I just got a phone call not too long ago. Oh boy, I wanted to cry. I cried for her because there was someone who, out of nervousness, out of being anxious. That's why, the Bible says be anxious for nothing. But I forgot everybody don't know the Bible. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication. That's in Philippians. Make your request known unto God. She was just so anxious. And I think she did it maybe like 2-3 days before she even came to me, before she was referred to me. And she called and set up a payment plan with a debt that was during the expired. Ouch. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not even going to tell you the outcome of that because there's always hope when you know the law. Okay. But anyway, so the statute, what does that mean? That means that after a certain amount of time, after you're paying on a debt. Let's just say I have a Macy's account. Macy's, I stopped paying Macy's in 2020. 2025, okay? That's the 5-year statute of limitation. 2006 statute of limitations is expired. I don't have to pay. I don't care how they try to come after me. I don't have to pay. But there's so much misinformation about that whole statute of limitations on the internet. It's so much information, misinformation, I want to say, and people they just mess themselves up. But neither here nor there. What I will say is that a lot of debts that you end up paying, you should not be paying. Some you should, because sometimes they got you and that's all, but I'm not going to get into all of that tonight. But I just want to encourage you to handle whatever is unfinished. All of your unfinished business concerning your finances should get dealt with in the fourth quarter. Because now you're getting ready to come up on new beginnings. You want to deal with these little straggly things, these things that are unfinished and they're loose, and just get it done so that you can begin to get your financial house in order. Things happen. Trust me, I overstand. Things happen and it causes us to, lose some foot in here, or, maybe not have things together. But now is the time. Now is the time. So you want to position yourself to take a look at your situation. If you happen to have a judgment, or somebody that has a judgment, you can get out of that thing. You don't have to stay in it. You just maybe need to vet the process. Vet, what does that mean? Investigate how it was done, how it was delivered, how all of that stuff. To kind of get out of it. You want to find out the whole process, how it took place. That's big, because if you can get out of that judgment, now it's time for negotiation. I'm just offering you some, what's the word I'm looking for? Strategies on how you may be able to do that. I know I didn't go into much details because there's a way for you to find out exactly how much. I got all the details for you. I got all the details for you. What are the details? I tell you, I got the details right here. I got the details right here. You see that that piece right there. Okay. That piece right there will basically show you everything that you need to do in order to take a look at your situation, right? And say, you know what? I think I want to take a look at my whole financial portfolio right now. Maybe if you deal with, because see, watch this. That's the first thing that people begin to deal with in the fourth quarter is their finances. Because that's where all the help is needed, in the finances, your financial portfolio. Where do you start with? Of course, the debt, the credit, because that's what affects people the most. So you can find out more of this information. How do you challenge a judgment? How do you get out of a judgment? The statute of limitations. Okay, instead of agreeing to pay the debt, how do you get out of it? There are laws you can do. Yes, some of the internet may give you information, but all of the information is just so not accurate. I'd be crying inside when I look at some of this stuff. I'm like, wow, you can do more damage to your situation when you don't have all of the accurate information. So if you scan that code, you can learn how to become a credit hero. $25 a month. Trust me. This was not my decision to offer for $25 a month. The Lord told me to do that. $25 a month. Go at your own pace. And guess what? I'm not I'm not able to see. It's a course basically that's helping you to get your financial house in order. I don't see who you are. I'm not able to see who takes the course. No, you get the course, you go at your own pace and get your financial portfolio in order so that you can start the new year off basically preparing yourself and guiding, preparing yourself for the next financial cycle, if you will, is what I wanted to say. You can, get yourself, basically see what the outline is of where you are. Maybe there's some things you can do to, there are things you can do, not maybe, there are things that you can do to fix it, to stop the bleeding, to make some improvement. But in order to do that, you got to begin. You have to begin. And I just want to, this course is basically showing you how to go from despair to hope. Because when you have financial challenges, y'all already know there's hope. So with that being said, it's just to prepare you and entering into your next financial cycle, which is the beginning of the first quarter. You got 3 months to do it. You can do it. So I just wanted to basically share that information with you. Hopefully, just scan the code on the screen, find out what's included in the course, and then you just take it from there. That's all. No pressure. But I wanted to share with you the judgments, because a lot of people, if you're not in a judgment status now, on your way to a judgment status, you might not want to give in so easy. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Join us next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but it'll be something pertaining to getting your financial house in order for the remaining of this quarter, the next 3 months. Have a blessed week and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.